grieving, on Friday the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction.
That was the comment that Jimmy Kimmel made on Monday night. It comes after what he shared in the short aftermath of Kirk's assassination, where Jimmy Kimmel wrote, quote, "Instead of the angry finger pointing, can we just for one day agree that it is horrible and monstrous to shoot another human? On behalf of my family, we send love to the Kirks and to all the children, parents, and innocents who fall victim to senseless gun violence." Now, this decision tonight has raised many questions beyond the actions of an individual company. That's because this announcement comes just hours after we heard from the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, in an interview where he said that Jimmy Kimmel should be removed over his comments about Charlie Kirk's killing.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are avenues here for the FCC, so there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful, because it could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. Look, there's calls for Kimmel be fired. I think you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again, the FCC is going to have remedies that we could look at.
Like what Jimmy Kimmel said or not, find it tasteful or distasteful, that is the FCC chair saying there, in the wake of that there are remedies that the FCC could look at. One thing that's important to note here as we look at this is how Kimmel's departure from the airwaves has been a goal of President Trump's for quite some time, long before the comments that he made about Charlie Kirk and how Trump was responding to his death. Trump himself has said more than once that he wanted Jimmy Kimmel off the air. On July 29th, this is what he wrote after CBS announced it was canceling Stephen Colbert's late night show. The president said he believed that Jimmy Kimmel would be next. And he said this from the White House just in August.
Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go outside in the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent. Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going.
Trump said he heard that they are going to be going. I want to get straight to CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter, and CNN's senior legal analyst, Ellie Honig, who are both here tonight. And Brian, one thing that stands out tonight is that it is 9 o'clock on the East Coast. It's just past 2 a.m. here in the United Kingdom. Obviously, Trump has weighed in. We haven't heard from Jimmy Kimmel himself yet or his show on this.
That's what I keep waiting for. That's what I'm refreshing for, Caitlin. Kimmel's camp has had about 3 hours now to process this decision by ABC. They were just about to start production of the episode when this decision was handed down. Some fans were already lined up, ready to head inside the studio in West Hollywood. So Kimmel's voice is going to be really important. That's the next big part of this story. What will he say and when? Kimmel's contract with ABC was coming due in just a few months. I believe it was set to expire at the end of this year. So this could be the end of the show forever, right? Maybe the show will not come back, or maybe ABC is going to react to the very loud criticism that the company is facing right now. Everyone from, Democratic politicians, free speech groups, but also many ordinary fans of Kimmel who wanted to see him tonight in the coming days. Because, every reaction causes a counter reaction. And I'm very interested to see what the counter reaction is here among the millions of Kimmel fans who are going to want to see him on the air. But right now, Caitlin, the entertainment industry is in absolute shock. This feels like a worst case scenario for many entertainers, comedians, political activists, figures who want to have free speech rights in this country and feel that they are under threat right now.
Well, Brian, can I ask you on that? Because I know sometimes as a reporter covering a beat, you hear rumors about someone's departure or firing coming. Had there been rumors about this happening? Had you had any indication that Jimmy Kimmel, a very popular host, was about to be pulled off of ABC?
Fears, but not rumors. What we have been hearing in recent weeks were fears, murmurs about what the political environment is like. A sense that, President Trump wanted Kimmel canceled. A sense that Disney does feel the pressure from the Trump administration. Disney's a big company. It doesn't just have broadcast stations. It also has theme parks everybody loves. It also has lots of other lines of business. So the company does have to take the government's threats seriously. We're in a whole new world when it comes to this administration being willing and able to exert its pressure against private corporations. A world that these executives, these CEOs, frankly, do not want to live in, right? Disney CEO Bob Iger, he thought about running for president. He would have been running as a Democrat. He is not a MAGA figure, but he is doing what he might believe is best for his business in this moment. And this is going to embolden the Trump allies who are prioritizing not just control of the government, but also control of culture. They're not trying to just add new conservative voices to the air. They're trying to squash the liberal voices they don't like. And at least for tonight, they are succeeding.
Ellie Hodig, what's your legal view of this in terms of what we heard from the FCC chair, not only hours before this happened, but he was cheering this in a message to Bryant earlier that he was posting. It was a meme from The Office of Michael Scott dancing. What are the legal implications here for people who are asking whether or not this is legal?
So the key decision maker here is ABC itself. Now, given the pressure tactics that have been put out there by the FCC commissioner, we just saw that clip, by the president at times, ABC really had two options. Option one, which they took, would be to suspend Jimmy Kimmel. They're a private entity, ABC. They cannot be sued under the First Amendment. The First Amendment only applies to governmental entities. Congress shall make no law. So ABC could have chosen option A, suspend Jimmy Kimmel, save yourself the money, the political hassle, whatever it is, good or bad, that's ABC's decision. But option B, which I think is really more important, and ABC chose not to take, is they could have taken a stand. They could have said, we're not going to give it to the pressure. And then if and when the FCC took action, ABC could have challenged that in court. And I am quite confident that they would have won on First Amendment grounds, because now we're talking about governmental action. Now we're talking about the FCC, which is part of the executive branch. There is some case law related to this. We've never seen a case quite like this. But basically, there was a case involving the Biden administration, this practice called jawboning, which basically means behind-the-scenes effort to influence what's being put up on social media or in media. And basically, what the courts have told us is the key question is the government's conduct coercive? Is it so strong that it amounts to coercion? And if you look at the statements that you just played, Caitlin, by the FCC commissioner, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty coercive. I mean, that's basically on the borderline of a threat. And I think had ABC stood up, I think they would have won in court.
Well, and so Brian, just to be clear, I saw your post on this, that this happened. Nexstar was the first, I believe, to say that they were not going to be airing Jimmy Kimmel's show.
That's right.
You reported back in August, and I think this is important context here for everyone to keep in mind, that Nexstar had agreed to a $6.2 billion deal to buy another broadcast heavyweight in what would be a huge consolidation of local TV stations. That is a deal that requires the approval of the federal government.
Yes, this is the key to the story. Even though it's a little bit nerdy, this shows how the governmental abuse of power is actually happening, affecting private companies. So Nexstar already owns lots of TV stations. It wants to merge with Tegna, which owns lots of other stations. In order to do that, it needs Brendan Carr, the SEC chair's permission, and it actually needs the SEC to change the regulations entirely about how many stations an individual company can own. So Nexstar has all of this pending business before the government. Tegna also does, and there's another big station owner called Sinclair that also has business pending before the government. So what do we know tonight? We know that both Nexstar and Sinclair called up ABC this afternoon, complained about Kimmel, and said they were yanking the show off their stations. ABC subsequently yanked the show nationwide. So we know that two major TV station owners, both of which need to curry favor with the Trump administration, were the ones that most loudly and vocally condemned Kimmel and said they were going to not air the show tonight and in the coming nights. It's an Occam's razor situation. It's exactly what it looks like.
Well, and Ellie, on that front, I mean, Brendan Carr, people might not be familiar with the FCC chair. He's a huge ally of the president's. We've actually invited him to come on and talk about this decision, talk about his comments about this. We'll see if he does. I want you to listen to what he also said today when it came to what the administration has been doing and their relationship relationship with media companies, as Brian just alluded to there?
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. I mean, look, NPR has been defunded, PBS has been defunded, Colbert is retiring, Joy Reid is out at MSNBC, Terry Moran is going to ABC, is now admitting that they are biased. CBS has now made some commitments to us that they're going to return to more fact-based journalism. And so I think you see some lashing out from people like Kimmel, who are frankly talentless and are looking for ways to get attention.
Ellie, what do those comments say to you?
Well, the easy way or the hard way, that's the exact quote we just heard. That is a textbook example of coercion. That is what the courts look at to decide whether the government has overstepped. What could be more coercive than to say the easy way or the hard way? Caitlin, I think I have to draw a parallel here as well. Donald Trump and his administration are making similar moves, have made similar moves. Yes, certainly focused on the media, but also focused on American universities, also focused on the largest law firms in the country. And essentially, the deal they've been offered has been exactly the same. Easy way or hard way. And by the way, these are mostly private entities that we're talking about. And when they look at the bottom line, the easy way is we pay off, we pay a settlement, we fire somebody, it costs us whatever, $10 million, $16 million. We avoid a political fight, we avoid a costly legal battle. You can understand, I'm not excusing it, but you can understand why a rational, bottom line focused private entity would choose the easy way. The hard way is you go into court, you fight, maybe you win, maybe you don't, you make an enemy in the White House. But I do want to say this, those who have chosen the hard way, a handful of law firms who have challenged this, Harvard and other universities who challenge this, they're undefeated in the courts. The courts understand that all of this violates the First Amendment. That's why Trump has lost every time someone has stood up against him and gone into court on one of these types of issues.
Yeah, but he's been touting these settlements as he did the one with ABC News on his way here to the UK. Ellie Honig, Brian Stelter. Obviously, Brian, if you hear anything from Jimmy Kimmel or ABC, we'll have you back on this hour. Also joining us on this breaking news, Democratic Congressman of Maryland, Jamie Raskin. And sir, obviously we were having you on to talk about an entirely different subject, but given this news, do you agree with what Ellie said there, that comments like that we hear from the FCC chair are, as Ellie put it, textbook coercion?
Well, it's absolute corruption of government, and it's absolute violation of the free speech rights of the people and of the media. And this is really taking us back to the days of King George, where it was a crime to insult the president. They didn't like what Jimmy Kimmel said about Donald Trump. All he really did was show everybody what Trump's reaction was to being asked how he was faring, and he was immediately talking about reconstruction of the ballroom. But in any event, he was offended by that. That was a crime in Great Britain, to insult the dignity of the king, because the king was seen to have the authority of God behind him. So it was an insult of God. It was called lèse majesté. So basically, you insult the president.